Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and today we're talking about episode 7 of season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead, titled Twist and Shouts. Holy crap, this episode was great! This is probably my favorite episode of the season so far. Just everything came together in it. Had good tension, had good gore, some good character moments. And that's probably the best thing about this episode, is that even though it's not very plot heavy, it's very simple. There's a lot of good character stuff in here, and a lot of good character development, which is something this show kind of lacks. You know, the show's kind of just, most of the time, it's just there to have fun and have some crazy set pieces. This episode does have that, has some insane set pieces, but it's actually like all there to service the story, surprisingly enough, and it just works very well. This episode begins right where the last episode ends, with Ash, Kelly, who's actually possessed, and Brandy in his house. And Brandy comes down the stairs in this nice dress all made up and everything, saying that there's a dance going on at her high school, and that Miss Previtt, or Ruby, is going to be there, and actually she asked for Brandy to be there to kind of like reconcile everything, and you know, Ash is all like, no, this is a terrible idea. Of course, Kelly is just like, no, I think it's a good idea, because then maybe they can corner Ruby and they can end up killing her. So Ash is like, okay, good idea, I'll go along with it, and they're off to the dance. In the meantime, though, Pablo and the leader of the Knights of Samaria are still in the cellar, kind of reeling from what happened in the last episode. And there's actually a really good moment where the leader is just like, yeah, we were not prepared for this. We really don't know like what we're doing. And I'm like, okay, that's good, because that was my problem with the last episode, was that like these Knights of Samaria are all built up to be these like badass warriors, and they're really not. And she actually admits that in this episode. I'm like, okay, I like that. And then they started hearing like a voice coming from the wall. And just like a few episodes ago when Ash saw Brandy's friend in the wall, Pablo sees Kelly in the wall. And Kelly actually talks to him saying like, yeah, I screwed up. Which again is another great thing, because that was my problem with the last episode. I'm like, that's a dumb idea for her to go to Ruby's house by herself to fight her off. And this one she goes, yeah, I screwed up, I made a mistake, and now I'm dead. I'm pretty sure I'm dead. And so she's stuck in like the Deadlands, basically. And Pablo's reaction was actually pretty sad for him to kind of realize that Kelly is dead. And so he rushes off to go find Ash after that. And then we cut to Ruby in her house, in her child's room. And it's like kind of like cocoon-like thing that the child was in the last episode. And you can see that like the child is ready. The child's like breaking free and everything. And the child falls out of the like cocoon thing. And it is revealed to be Ash. He looks just like Ash. I don't know why I didn't think that before, that that's what was going to happen, since they basically built up to it. Like the Ash thing of the baby looked just like him. So of course they were building it to just be like an Ash clone. And I'm actually kind of disappointed with that on initial like viewing when I first saw him like rise up, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's another Ash clone. Like just when this season was starting to kind of like go its own route and do its own thing, we get another Ash clone, which is, you know, something we've not only seen before, like in Army of Darkness, but we saw before in the show back in season 1. So when that happened, I was like, oh, okay. But the way they handle it, the way they execute it, like later on, actually works pretty well and actually pays off. It actually is not bad. I like it, actually. But then we cut to the dance, and Ash has to go a separate way because he can't go in the front door because, you know, cops aren't really happy that he had a baby in the trunk of his car. So Kelly and Brandy go into the dance, and Ash goes the back routes. And in the meantime, Ash's clone comes in, and we see this like couple like just smoking pot right outside the dance. And you see the Ash clone like walk over, just like, hey guys, no, you shouldn't be doing that, it's a bad thing. And he just turns out his chainsaw and just tears them apart. And it's handled in a very dramatic way. Like, it keeps cutting back to the dance and everybody's happy, and then it cuts back to the kids who are just getting brutally murdered and blood's like everywhere, and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit darker than what we've seen before. This episode actually is a lot darker than the previous episodes. And there is some funny bits thrown in there. There are some funny like jokes and lines. But for the most part, it's played very straight. I mean, Ash has a couple of goofy lines, but for the most part, he plays it very straight because a lot of this has to do with Brandy. And it's really interesting, the way they have Bruce Campbell played off is that every time something has to do with Brandy, he plays it super serious. So the fact that this whole episode has to do with Brandy means that he's pretty much serious the entire time. And I like that. It's a very good change of pace from what we normally see. So now you have the Ash clone going around like the dance just slashing people basically. And then you get to the scene where like Ruby is trying to win over Brandy. And so the first thing she does is she has like a little slide up on the wall showing her mom and her friends saying like, oh, we mourn the loss of 2 people who just died recently and all that kind of stuff. And you see like Brandy kind of like conflicted like, I don't know, maybe she is good? And that's where Ruby really kicks in and try to convince her, is that she goes, you know what, I know more than I'm letting on. And she's like, oh, so you are a demon? And Ruby's like, no, but Ash is. You know, ever since he opened the book, like, all this has been going on. And, you know, Brandy's still kind of skeptical. She's starting to kind of turn a little bit. And, of course, the major turning point is when she runs into her dad, who's actually the clone. And the clone's just like, oh, yeah, see those kids over there? I killed them. Like, they were wearing the shoes. They were not matching the dress code. What's up with that? And that's where she's just like, oh, crap. Ash is bad, and she runs to Ruby. And while walking through the halls, Ash ends up coming face to face with the clone Ash. And they have a really good back and forth. I like Ash's reaction, just like, oh, another dumbass double. So even he acknowledges the ridiculousness of it. But they have a good interaction. You start to see how like different they are as characters. How the clone is a little bit more childlike. And I like the back and forth they have. And they get ready to have a fight, but then a cop comes in and stops Ash and arrests him. So, like, this episode is all kind of like built on misdirection and trying to get these characters to specific points to have Brandy kill Ash. And Pablo gets to the school and ends up running into Kelly. And this scene I thought was great. Because the way he plays it off, because he's like, I don't think that's Kelly, because, you know, Kelly just told me that she's dead. And he kind of misdirects her by going like, you know, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, that I've always had these feelings for you. And, you know, I've always wanted to kiss you. And, you know, she's just like, well, you know, maybe later we can change that. And that's what gives it away. And I love his line when he, like, punches her, like, square in the face, knocks her down. And it's just like, you know, Kelly and I have kissed before, and it was awesome. So you're not Kelly. It had great character development to Pablo and really having him like coming into his own and basically becoming a badass. They fight a little bit and Kelly gets away, so Pablo has to go run and find Ash. And he ends up running into the Ash clone. And I love this scene. One of the things I like about the Ash clone is that he's kind of like a different character. He's not just like an evil Ash, even though he's running around slashing up high school students this entire episode. He doesn't really come off as just like an evil character like normally what an evil Ash is. He's a little different like that. There's a scene early on that I totally forgot to mention, is that when you first see him grown and everything, he has that weird chainsaw-like arm like the baby had. And he needs to get rid of that so he can, you know, blend in and be Ash. So literally Ruby makes him cut off his own hand. And that scene is so, like, screwed up because he starts, like, slicing it off and he's like, no, but it hurts, Mom. Is that right? Like, he's like an innocent child just trying to please his mom and he's, like, in pain cutting off his own hand. It's so screwed up. And then you get to the scene between him and Pablo where Pablo runs up to him and goes like, oh, hey, Jefe. And he's just like, Jefe? I know what that means. You just called me boss. Huh, good thing I know Spanish. And stuff like that. And he has just this innocent, childlike sense to him that I really like. And I thought it was very kind of different than what we normally see with evil Ash. Like, I thought it was pretty cool. Then we get to the major sequence of the episode, right in the middle of the dance, where Brandy runs over to Ruby. And it's all like, you know, you're right all along. Like, he's evil. We have to stop him. And he breaks in. Basically, it's the Ash clone breaking in, and it just starts slashing people. Literally just starts, like, murdering teenagers. And it's insane. It's chaos. It's crazy. And using, like, her abilities, Ruby, like, locks the doors and shuts the doors on everybody. It's right out of Carrie. It really is. It's just the kids running on the doors, slamming them, trying to open them up, while they're stuck inside, while this maniac is going around killing people. And, of course, you know, good Ash comes in, and evil Ash hides. So good Ash is in there, normal Ash is in there, and I love this part. Like, Ruby stands up and is acting all like she's trying to be a hero. She's like, no, Ash Williams, if you want me, here I am, let these kids go. And Ash runs up to her, and she takes his chainsaw arm and just impales herself with the chainsaw. Blood spurting everywhere, getting all over all the students. Just pure chaos. And, you know, she falls over dead, and Brandy freaks out. You know, she's like, oh my god, you just killed her. And she actually has the dagger. She's getting ready to kill him, and she has this kind of, like, flashbacks to, like, little moments they've had earlier on in the season, and she can't bring herself to do it. And that's when Pablo, fighting the clone Ash, bursts through the door, and she kind of sees what's going on and realizes that, like, okay, maybe Ash is telling the truth, and this is all just Brandy or Ruby trying to manipulate me. And the clone Ash ends up getting taken out really easily. Like, Ash just kind of shoots him and blows his head off. And that was kind of a disappointment. Like, they had all this build-up, and I can see that the character already really kind of, like, served his purpose. But it just seemed like a lot of build-up just to have him kind of get shot and killed. And I wish they would have done a little bit more with him. Ruby wakes up, or she gets up from pretending to be dead. So she takes, like, the dagger from Brandy, goes and throws it at Ash, but Brandy steps in the way and gets impaled. And she dies. And it's a very well-acted scene from Bruce Campbell. Like, it's probably the most convincing, like, sad acting that he's done, like, on this show. Like, you actually genuinely feel, like, his heart break. So he's just holding her body, just crying. And then we cut to Brandy waking up in the Deadlands. Basically in the same kind of place where Kelly is, where it's all kind of, like, has that green shade to it. And she wakes up in there, and she sees kind of, like, a shadow of something, and she runs away. And that's how the episode ends. Now, I'm glad we had that final bit, because even though it's a very well-acted scene, very well executed, I'm not gonna lie, when Brandy got impaled, I was kind of like, oh, okay. Because, like, we just killed off Kelly last episode, now we're killing off Brandy. But immediately cutting to her, like, inside the Deadlands, you go, oh, okay, this is a plot point, and this is what they're leading towards, it's actually part of the story, and they're not just trying to have a shocking character death. Because that's what it felt like they were going for, and that's not it. So I'm really glad that they had that final bit. Although it does make it really obvious what they're, like, leading towards. Like, she's going to end up getting out of there, and she's probably going to bring Kelly with her, and that's how them two are going to come back from the dead at the end of the season. Overall, this was just an insane episode. Like, again, a lot darker than what we've really seen in the show. A lot more serious, which I really like. A few jokes here and there, but very serious. Very just screwed up and brutal, like just with Ash, or the clone Ash, slashing all the people in the dance. That was nuts. Some really good dramatic weight to stuff, good character stuff. Like, I love the stuff with Pablo, and I love all the stuff with Ash. Like, that was great. This show normally lacks good character development, and a lot of times it just kind of feels like having the characters go in circles and kind of return to, like, their status quo in the show. And this didn't really feel like that. It felt like this was things really moving forward. I actually enjoyed the clone Ash, which I didn't think I was. When he first popped up, I was like, oh god, here we go again. But they made it work. They played into it a lot, and they actually really made it feel like two distinct characters that I like. Like, you could tell the difference between real Ash and the clone Ash. I thought that was really good, really well acted by Bruce Campbell. Really hope the next few episodes continue the momentum from this episode and continue in, like, the unique direction that it's going. Because if it does, it'll make for a really great ending to the season that I can't wait to see. So yeah, that's episode 7 of season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. And that's about it for now. Until next time, talk to you guys later.